Are any of you guys like really violent vomiters?
Occasionally.
Violent?
So violent. I will get
really?
Yeah, I will get like broken blood vessels in my
Yeah.
face for throwing up. Like
I don't do
they're
that,
so violent.
but I
just-
get like sore.
It's painful.
Everything's
My
sore.
abs hurt afterwards.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
I mean, the heaves are full body.
Dude,
my
I
wife
don't like-
hates it.
My wife is like thinks I'm
Yes.
dying, and I'm
You're
like,
like
I
a-
am.
you're like
It
a
is
cat.
horrible.
The
loud.
funny
So loud.
thing is, the
And my-
first when early on, my wife wanted to be involved, and I'm like, I throw up and just go back to. I don't want anybody near me. I don't
She wanted
want
to hold your.
comfort.
She wanted to
Get
hold
out
your
of
I
the
don't
room.
want. I don't want a hand on the back.
Don't touch me.
Don't touch me.
Give your hand
And,
out.
100%.
she
Yeah.
she
Do not
goes,
touch
but
me.
then she comes in and she's like, what? Afterwards, she's like, why do you grip the toilet? Because I'm like, I grab
You're like,
both sides.
yeah, no, you're like,
when she throws up, she's like hands here and like sticking the head out.
Well,
that
and
she
it's
doesn't
like
touch anywhere.
so
and it's
plump, it's
nasty. Yeah.
I'm
And I'm
like,
like
dude,
grabbing it like.
I am straight up dying when I'm vomiting. It's bad. I can't
The
control it.
toilet is like
the,
comforting.
the early banter
Yeah.
is just worthless.
I can't control it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, welcome back to God, Gains, and Grit. Today we're getting started on the next of the three lead topics, which is grit. I think we all have discussed, we all agree that the world could use a lot more grit. Angela Duckworth wrote the book Grit, and she said that enthusiasm is common, but endurance is rare. So let's jump in there. Brandon, what do you got for us? What does grit mean to you?
Yeah. Grit is it's perseverance despite what's going on around you. So I think there's a couple key factors here. One of those things is with perseverance, you're not going to see grit appear or like be evident overnight. Like it's not something that's like, oh, instant. Like, oh, this is grit right here. It's something that you see like looking back, I think, in time, like looking over a long period of time. Like you can see someone has gone through a bunch of really hard circumstances and they came out the other end because they kept fighting. They kept failing, they kept getting back up. I think that is what grit is. But I also think grit, it's really interesting because grit's not like this characteristic where like you're 6'5", like you can go and dunk a basketball. Like that's a physical characteristic. Grit is something where we can talk about nature versus nurture, but with grit, you can just decide to have grit. This is my opinion, at least. Like you can just make the decision, like it's like discipline. I'm going to be gritty. Like I'm going to get back up when I fail. I'm going to keep pushing even though I don't want to. I'm tired. I don't want to work out. I'm going to have grit. I'm going to continue to work out, stuff like that. So that's, I guess, a good starting point.
Yeah, it's really just a matter of, can you keep going?
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have to be super good at anything, but are you going to continue and not stop?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's as simple as during the workout, like, hey, we set this goal. This is what needs to get done. Are you going to quit, or do you have the grit to keep going? And then it's also the day-to-day grind. I know some fathers who they have their kids and then they're like, well, I don't have time for me, so I'm just going to give up on my dreams until my kids are moved out. And to me, that's like, I think you don't have enough grit to lose enough sleep to get to your goals.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy for sure. Or we're talking about like, we're up super late with our kids because they were sick. And I think an older part of me would have been like, wow, man, I'm tired. Sorry, guys, I'm not going to be able to make it. But in that moment, you're like, I'm losing sleep, but I'm making it to this in the morning because that's what I said I was going to do. And that's a little bit of grit. And I think, too, what you're saying, the long-term in and out grind. Like, are you going to continue?
I like what you said about having a goal. I think that's a main thing about grit. You can't really be gritty unless you have a goal. And I see grit as perseverance through suffering towards the goal you've decided upon. So you need to persevere through the suffering to get to the goal. And so without having a goal, can you be gritty?
Yeah. The that saying, Like stupidity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Insanity.
Insanity.
Oh, insanity.
Yeah.
Sorry. Probably stupidity too.
Well, that's kind of
You could do the same thing over and over. But it's like grit actually embodies that. It's like, how many times can you fail and get back up again? And then with the grit comes the actual change. So I think like being willing to get up and fail every day, what you're trying to do, whether it's in business, whether it's in working out or whatever it is, and like being willing to get back up and try it again. And I think to that point is like grit can be developed by being consistent. Like you're not going to develop grit by trying something one time and being like, it's not for me, and then trying it again 2 months later and thinking that it's going to go better. It's like being consistent. And I think like the enthusiasm is like, oh man, best laid plans. I'm super excited to do this. But then like there's that quote that everybody has a perfect plan until they get punched in the face.
Mike Tyson.
Mike Tyson.
Key.
And that's like grit. It's like, what are you going to do when you get punched in the face? How are you going to respond? Are you willing to get punched in the face again?
Yeah. I like that you brought up development too, because like you look at these people like David Goggins and you're like, I'm not born with that. But it's a small decision each time. We all have that voice in our head that's like, I can't run anymore, or I'm tired, I need to quit, I need to go to bed. Grit is learning how to say no to that voice. No, I can take one more step, and being in charge of that voice. Like, yeah, that voice is there. It's always going to be there, but are you in control of it? And I think that's a good part of grit too.
Yeah, I think the Bible's a great place to go for grit. I mean, there's a lot of characters within the Bible, and I know before the pod we were all talking about Paul. Well, you had brought Paul specifically in what we're talking about in church in Romans. I mean, I think we just went through Romans 5, and Romans 5, 3 through 5. Yeah, not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. And so there's a lot of words in there that might have extended definitions than just what they're saying, but specifically things that we can take away from is there's grit is rejoicing in suffering, right? It's the creation of endurance. It's being consistent. It's having a hope, right? So there's a lot of things that go into grit, but specifically is pushing through suffering towards your hope, right? So you're always looking towards something.
Christ. Yeah. Yeah, I think that does kind of segue into the verse I had saved. And it's Acts 16:25, and it's right after Paul has been beaten and thrown into jail. And it's, and at midnight, Paul and Silas prayed and sang praises unto God, and the prisoners heard them. And so that's like, they're pretty down, they're pretty low, but they still have enthusiasm in these low moments. And I think that's a great aspect of grit. Like they're doing these things day in, day out for years, getting stoned to death, getting beaten regularly,
boiled,
and then they have the grit to say, yeah, we're gonna walk back in there and do it again.
Yeah, most people would be like,
just
okay, I've been imprisoned.
This is
I
example for me.
tried.
Maybe God doesn't want me to do this.
Yeah. God is clearly giving me a message. This is not for me.
Yeah.
I think that's a good argument to be like the Holy Spirit can provide you grit if you're willing to receive it.
for it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
For
See,
sure.
I think that's the key that I took away from study and looking at grit is God will give you the grit when you need it, as you're submitting to Him. Because a lot of times this white-knuckled adherence to or trying to just power through something, like workouts is one thing, like that is a mindset that you're going through, but then God will give you stuff in life that's so difficult that it's like it's not even your choice. It's like, here, I'm going to give you something that completely breaks you and then carry you through it. And then to the world, it may look like grit, but in reality, well, I mean, it is grit, but it's a reliance on Christ. It's a grittiness of holding on tightly to the only one who can take you there, right? And it's not so much us as much as our hope. Like kind of like that verse that you just mentioned. I mean, that's ultimately how we came up with Living Hope Roofing. Our company was born again to living hope. 1 Peter 1:3. So our living hope is Christ, and with that comes character and endurance and all those additional things that you were talking about,
etc.
etc. Yeah, you know the thing.
There's a consistent theme throughout the Bible that we're supposed to be prepared, specifically for the return of Christ. But preparation is a principle in the Bible. Like, we're not supposed to be caught sleeping or not doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I think the ability to put ourselves into situations where we can develop our grit is a responsibility that we have too, because if we're not flexing that muscle and training that, it's mental strength is what it is. If we're not training that, then we're going to get into a situation where maybe God has called us to do something, and it's going to require some grit. And maybe God's like, I've given you a lot of other opportunities to help grow this grit, this mental strength. And so it's all in preparation for like God's ultimate plan and purpose for your life.
Yeah. Paul, we need grit at home, obviously. So take it home for us. How does grit present itself in our roles as husbands and fathers?
I think grit presents itself at home when you have a goal that you're trying to achieve. And so for kids, as a father, wanting to raise them up in the way that they should go so that they should not leave when they grow up and get old, right? So that's the goal, is to embody Christ to them as much as possible. And we fail and we mess up. And so part of that is understanding that I am a sinner. I'm going to mess up. There needs to be opportunity to say sorry and have forgiveness and show your children what that looks like. But it's after failing to not just be okay with the failure. It's to get back up and say, I am the father. This is what God has required of me. I still need to be the role that God has placed in my life and in my family's life. So even though you mess up, you still need to walk in that role that God has put you in. And so grit at home is being consistent through inconsistencies, right? So last night you were up a lot with your child who has her own grit, right? And you were consistent there for her. And that's what it's all about, right? Is being consistent in the inconsistencies and being that unwavering change for your family. So that's whether you're, as a father, you're consistent, your kids always know what you're going to do. They're not surprised. And as a husband, to be there for your wife and be that consistent, steady rock as you are focused on Christ, obviously, right? So we're not trying to be the rock by ourselves, but we're trying to be the consistent steadiness in our home because we're in the Word, which is our solid ground.
Yeah, and I think part of that is getting up, because for me, when I hear that, I'm like, oh, I'm just rifling through all the times I'm not consistent at home or that I am, all over the place or whatever. And I think there's an aspect of our grit is getting up afterwards. It's like I fall down 7 times, but I get up 8, and it's like you're going to keep coming back and then owning your own stuff from there. Cam, how do you find the next gear with your grittiness when it comes to the 5 to 10 p.m.? You're coming home from work. You've already worked 10 hours.
Yeah, that's the
How do you
slump.
find the next?
That's the slump. That's the easy one to fall into.
It's the letdown, yeah.
Yeah, diet comes into that a little bit too, for sure. With me anyways, lately. But that's where you kind of got to turn the grit up. Like, you woke up early, you went through your full day, whatever happened with work was good, was bad. Kids don't care. You got to get home and be fresh on energy. So you got to turn the grit up and be fresh for your family, and be consistent. Because those are the moments where you're like, all right, I'm tired, babe, it's bedtime, you're not listening, I got to get in bed. And the tendency is to be short, for me anyways, to be short, to be rude, to start raising voice. But it takes practice and grit to remain the proper leader of the family in those times, to remain the man of God that you want to be the example of. If you're going to lead them towards Christ, you can't be having these outbursts. You can't be doing these am I kind to my kids, to my wife. So for me, it's just, honestly, I get home, I park the van, I have to take a second to reset, to pray a little bit. I'm like, all right, give me some more grit, give me some more patience. I actually try not to pray for patience, because he throws more at you. Yeah, so we learn not to do that. But yeah, and then, I mean, I know this episode isn't about food, but like the food, if I have coffee in the morning, I'm crashing at 5. So I either got
So you got to get more coffee.
I either drink my coffee. Yeah, I either
like a
drink
true
it at
addict.
noon.
3 p.m. baby.
Yes.
Get some mo.
I'll do a little noon coffee, and then that'll pick me up through there. But it's really just knowing what's coming and preparing your mindset for that. Like, okay, this is what we got next.
Yeah, fueling your body.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like the most challenging times after work, like at home, are when you're already the most exhausted.
Yep.
It's like seems to be a theme. And I have to constantly remind myself, like, this isn't just because you're done working for the day doesn't mean you're done working for the day. Like, how are my children going to remember me from the 5 to 9, right? And like, now that I have 8-year-old, 6-year-old, like the things that they are remembering from 2 years ago, I'm like, okay, so they're everything right now that they're experiencing with me at home, after work, weekends, like these are going to be how they actually remember me and their childhood. And so that's a big thing for me right now, is like, I don't want to be the dad that comes home to the lazy boy and falls asleep and then it's just like, don't bother me, I'm sleeping, I worked hard. Like, I don't want to be that dad. I don't have a lazy boy, just for the record. I'm not going to get one.
So can't get there.
So I know, Brandon, you do, but no.
Catch it straight for no reason.
Yeah.
Is that just a dick or what?
A dig, yeah.
He just sits there smiling.
It's okay, man. I know.
My house is too small to have a lazy boy.
Yeah, I didn't think you had a lazy
No, we
boy.
don't.
Your house can't have 2 lazy boys.
Okay.
Anyways,
He woke up and chose violence this morning.
yes. No, that's one thing, is
Great.
like, how are my children going to remember me at home after work? And so I think just praying for more grit, praying for wisdom, like the Lord gives it to us when we ask, and we're asking with the right heart. And I think being just as strong as we are at home with our families as we are at work providing, is that whole thing of balance. Like, just because you're really good at working, like, what happens when you need to go home and you need to sub out your wife because she's been working all day, right? So
What were you thinking, Daniel?
Jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Sub
out my wife.
I was like,
I was we were going different directions there. Yeah.
Submit.
That's
You
fine.
were thinking of swapping.
I was thinking
out.
like subcontract out my wife. Like, what in the world does that mean?
like
We all-
subbing in
we
and
all
out, like a
thought-
substitution, like in sports.
No,
I
I caught him.
We all
in
play
it.
sports.
Gosh.
He was a banner.
No, he's
This guy's funny. Oh no.
So Brandon, there's a culture among at least I've seen on social media of men that seem to be embracing the idea that we're put upon, that we got the raw end of the deal, that men aren't appreciated. How do you avoid that when you go home and not just take home this resentment that, you guys don't appreciate what I've done?
Yeah. When I go home after being with TJ, I really feel like that.
Yeah.
I'm here
Hey,
for
all
you, man.
I
these
appreciate
digs.
you.
But on a serious response note, we have to anchor ourselves in Christ, and that's going to be like a repetitive answer for everything, because that really is the answer to everything, is anchor yourself in Christ. But the reason that that's specifically applicable here is the woe is me culture is ironically super selfish. It's self-pity is what it is, and when you have self-pity, you're being selfish. So if we're anchored in Christ, our mindset should be like, gosh, like I am a sinner, I'm completely unrighteous, I'm a sinner, I need Jesus, and like He is my rock, He's my anchor. If I'm not anchored in Christ, I'm constantly thinking like, why is this happening to me? Like, why am I so tired? Why do I have all these things happening to me? Which has this underlying assumption of I deserve something more than this, and that's just not true. That's a lie. And so the self-pity, the woe is me culture, it's selfish, which that's kind of harsh to like call out, but it really is. It's like that's the truth. And so to avoid that, we need to anchor ourselves in Christ and be in Scripture and understanding that like, hey, I don't deserve anything, and yet I have everything that God's given me. And when you have that perspective, you can't not be grateful. I mean, you're just grateful for everything. So and that's where I think, you read Romans 5?
Romans 5.
Yeah, where we rejoice in the suffering. And I think that you can get to a point of rejoicing in the suffering by having that grateful attitude and that gratitude, because you realize, like, I don't deserve anything good, and yet I still have good things happening in my life. And even though there's bad things happening now, like, I've got the ultimate future with Christ in eternity. And so like even though like bad things are happening now, you can look forward to the future and through your salvation too. So
Yeah, I think we forget that we were created to work. So in Genesis 1 or Genesis 2, Genesis 2:15 says that the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and to keep it. And then the Lord gives him a commandment of what he can eat, what he can't eat. And I think it's really important to understand that the best place for a man to be is working, right? And you see when people fail is when they're not working. Like, see David, he's
idle hands.
got, idle hands. And so when we understand that sometimes the best place for a man to be is to be doing work and not to see work as a negative thing. I mean, there's some work that really sucks. But,
Good.
I mean, our job is to work. And that's where we can find fulfillment, is in that work and in that hard work and in that toiling. And that was prior to the fall. And after the fall, then it was, you're gonna toil with your work. And I think when you see that change, that sin makes your work suck, and then you see Paul talk about enjoy and rejoice in your suffering, there's this odd circle. It's like, okay, yes, I want to work because it provides fulfillment, because I was designed to work. My work sucks because of sin. Rejoice in that suffering. Okay, I'm going to rejoice in it. Okay, I like my work. Oh man, this work sucks. Rejoice. All right, I like this. And it's that mental perseverance. It's, again, getting back to the idea of grit, of mentally persevering through the suffering and getting to that enjoyment of hard work. I don't think anybody enjoys the workout when they're in it. Maybe you do. Actually, no, you said you didn't. That's right, on the first
I don't know, man. That's a hard question.
But do you enjoy the workout while you're in it? But I know you enjoy it when you're done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We all enjoy the hard work when it's completed. And that takes grit to get through.
Yeah, no, I think, sorry, I'm going to jump back in here too.
Absolutely.
But everybody would agree that going through hard things and then coming out the other side produces something good.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even people with very low grit, it's like, okay, you work hard for a short amount of time, something comes from that. So the question really becomes like, how much grit can you have? Because I think everybody's got a little bit of grit. Some people have a lot of grit and they can get through a lot of hard times. And there's always a reward on the other side. And so being able to like extend that grit and go through even harder times and more failures and over a longer period of time, it reasons to stand to me that we would have something even greater produced at the end of that. The more grit that you have, the greater the reward. So
It's almost like grit is a proverbial muscle.
Mm-hmm.
It's an emotional muscle.
It feels like it is a muscle. It's grown over time. Yeah, for me, it's been one of those things where at home, God's given us a chance to have grit when we didn't have grit. We weren't ready for it. We were just handed something, and then you're like just trying to catch up with it the whole time. And then coming out the other side, like you're talking about, you suddenly realize like you survived something, and you're like, oh man, we just did that, and it was such a hand in hand with the Lord that it didn't feel like we gutted something out. It felt like we walked through fire and we're not burned. Right? It's almost biblical in that way. And so when I go out and work out with you guys, I don't like working out. I'm very confident. Like I have no internal conflict about whether I like it or not. I do not.
Yep.
But I feel like that's easy. Like even back on Memorial Day, we were doing the Murph, and you guys are just miles ahead of me. I'm like somewhere in the distance behind, trying to just keep moving. And it didn't feel. I mean, your lungs feel tired, and there's that endurance aspect of it. But it didn't feel like a heavy burden to me. It was like, you're just moving, you're just doing something. As long as you're not pushing yourself beyond a certain limit where you're throwing up or something, it's like you're fine. You can just keep going. But I think there's a context, because early on in life, I just avoided those things. I was like, I'm not an endurance guy. Like, that's just not what I do. And then life calls and asks you to develop endurance when it's not really part of who you are, because that's life. Like you don't get away from this. And so you can continue to shrink back and ignore those things, or step into them and realize that there's something on the other side. But going back to fitness, I know a lot of you guys are more fit than I am and are more used to working out. TJ has mentioned this flow state, this mythical flow state within running. So with distance running anyway. So how does grit play into your workouts and getting through roadblocks, plateaus, and various things within a workout?
It's mental, like specifically with running. Like it is totally mental, because like I've seen in like specifically distance running, like the first couple miles, I can feel like sore in my hips or like my legs, or like get a cramp in my side. And if you quit right there, you'll never get past that initial wave. And that initial wave, at least for me, is usually there at some point in time in my run, whether it's 3 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, whatever the case is. I get this wave of like, okay, I'm cramping up, my hips sore, I'm unflexible, so like there's always that. And the grit is produced in, it'll go away. Like, I'm just going to keep running. I'm not going to burn it out. I'm just going to keep this pace and I'll get through it. And the crazy thing is, like, you give it another mile and the hips loosen up, the cramp will eventually go away. And then you actually finish your run faster than you started it. For me, that's what I find. Like when I do longer runs with like 6 to 10 miles, like my last 2, 3, 4 miles are a minute or so faster per mile than when I started. And yet the pain was at a slower pace. So it's like, it's totally a mental game for me of like saying no to quitting because my hips are sore, or saying no to quitting because I have this cramp, as if I'm dying. Like that's not the case. We did that workout a couple weeks ago that was just like an AMRAP. It was the 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off. And there was a point at the very end. It was actually when we thought it was only 3 sets, And you were like,
Yep.
no, we have another one, even though you said it was only 3 sets, which is fine.
It's all
Like,
like
we're there. It's okay.
I got 12, and we went 16.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyways,
That's
that
not
last
great.
set was killing, and like part of the team aspect is awesome because you don't want to quit on the last set. But the song by POD, Alive, came on, and we were like finishing our last set, and it's like, I feel so alive. And as I'm dying, I'm like, dude, I'm alive. Like, I'm living and I'm crushing this workout. And even something like that was just motivating enough to like push through and feel the pain, but also feel and know in the moment that I'm doing something that's difficult and I can do it. I think that's something that stands out to me.
That's a hard part for mental grit, is when you're like, oh, you have the goal of this exercise and you're giving it all, and right before the finish line they move the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point where you're like, okay, I gotta dig down,
Mm-hmm.
because
I just
you make your mental note, like, all right, I'm gonna make it this far, and then
that was diabolical.
That was
Yeah.
great. That's a good move.
that's a great grit growing experience.
Just on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
no. It was in the text messages.
Well,
it was
text
12.
messages. Yeah.
Anyways,
But it's good
so
for us.
moving on.
It's good for
Yeah.
you.
There was a number
Good.
12 in the text.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It's all right. I think that's another part of our workouts is we always text them, and it's like, we're just gonna have to explain this in person. 'Cause
Yes.
I don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
It's gonna suck. We're up for it. That's all
Yeah.
I really know. I think another important part of grit, though, is getting involved with other men, because you should be building it on your own, but when you can come together and you don't want to fall behind, or you're just gonna grow a lot more when you're in the suck with other dudes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so much more valuable. These Saturday workouts have kind of a little bit devalued my workouts, because they're so much more fun when you're with dudes who love the Lord, and it's all healthy banter. We're all pushing each other.
For the most part.
For the most part, yeah. I mean, we're all men, but I forget where
Some
I was
more
going
of
with
us.
that. Yeah.
Some
more
more
than
manly
others.
than others. So, Paul, what kind of lies and mindsets can kill that the flow?
Got it. Sorry. It reminded
Yeah,
me of-
I'm going to throw this over
It
to Cam.
reminded me when you first started, you're like, I start running, because it's the same with me. I start running and my ankle hurts, my hip hurts, this hurts. Our bodies want so badly to be comfortable and to be lazy. And part of that mental grit is you have to know that your body is going to do everything it can to stop you. And that grit is saying, no, I'm in charge. I know you're trying to get me to quit, but body, we got to push through this. We got to get through the next, and then after you push through those, and like it moves. It's like, okay, this didn't work. Let's try hurting over here. And that little mental grit says, no, that's not going to work either. And eventually your body's like, okay, we're doing this. We're running. I think that's an important part of mental grit, is to know your body wants you to quit. Your body wants you to stop. And the grit is to push through that. But back to you, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of fasting, right? So when you are putting your body to the side and saying, this is what I'm going to do, whether my physical body has these wants and these needs, and obviously we all want to eat, but when we say, I'm not going to do that because I have a goal, I've set aside a time that I'm going to fast, and whether you do that for health implications or you do that in a spiritual way, when you are taking your physical needs and setting them aside for a purpose and a goal, that is going to develop grit. And so in that context, things that might come up like, oh man, I gotta be prepped and ready for work. I can't, if I don't eat something, I'm gonna not be able to be good when I come home. But it's just setting that aside and saying, whether or not I have these feelings, this is the goal that I've decided that I'm gonna go do. And so I'm going to continue on that goal. And I know that as I go towards that goal, I need to be consistent in my work. I need to be consistent as a father. And that is not easy to do. And you will fail many times. And so it's just, okay, I failed. All right, get back on my horse literally that same minute and go, okay, this is how I should have acted. This is what I need to do. Let's push forward. And so it really is those small little things that creep in. And if you have a group of guys that are doing the exact same thing, like in a workout, or if we were to do a group fast, to have that suffering together, you can go, okay, guys, I need your help. I really want to eat a banana right now. And then people will throw memes and be like, oh, hey, it's something funny, and that'll take your mind off it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that mindset is where it's at. I think I was reading before we came in. I was reading. I think Proverbs 23 says, "So as a man thinks in his heart, he is." It really is a decision to push through something. And I always like the quote: "If you say you can or you can't, you're right." So if you're sitting there telling you, "I can't do this, I can't do this," you're right. You can't do it. If you're sitting there saying, "I can do this," then you can, because there is that level of reaching the next benchmark and then pushing through it. And just, I think people have proven that just within this group and in the world as a whole, that humans can do more than we think we can. So it's mostly about changing that mindset
And having that hope. I think we've all heard the study that they put rats in a pool and they spun it around, let them swim, and then they took half of them out, gave them some food, dried them off, and put them back in, and they went. It wasn't even twice as long. It was like.
It was the first set went like 7 hours,
Yeah.
and then they drowned.
Yeah.
And then the second set, they made them go 6 hours, and then they took them out, they fed them, warmed them, got them all fluffy again, and then they put them back in, and that they lasted 20 hours after that.
3 times because of the hope.
The hope that, okay, we might get out 3 times as long. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that story? I think it was Brett, or I don't remember which sermon I heard it from, but talking about the woman who was trying to set the distance record swimming across the channel.
Yeah, that was.
And
the fog.
when the fog rolled in, she quit because she wasn't even that far. She's 100 yards from the beach, but she couldn't see the beach, so she quit. The next time she pushed through, and she knew what it would take to get to the beach.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is, again, going back to what you said early on, was that goal. Setting the goal and keeping your eyes on the prize changes everything. It changes everything about what you can do when you can actually see where you're going.
Yeah, and you have a plan, because if you don't have a goal, you don't have an end destination. You might start the car, you might start driving, but you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter if you have a plan. If you have no goal to get, like, what is your plan worth?
You'd be idle again.
Yeah.
You
You're
have no
just going to pull over the side of the road and be like, nah, I don't know where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
So, Paul, how does identity in Christ shape our lives around grit and its more toxic cousin, if you will, grind culture?
What it really comes down to is, what's your goal? And so you can have a goal that seems great, like, hey, I want to be really successful, I want to get a lot of money, I want to have a nice house, be able to provide for my family. But when those are your main objectives, that's when it becomes a grind. You are constantly grinding for material things, constantly pushing, constantly putting in hours and hours, whether you're in front of your phone, whether it's to do something like a podcast, whether you're at work. If your main goal is to get things, or it is for your materialistic consumption, and not that material things are bad, but that if your main focus is only on getting those things, it will become a grind. When it's grit, it's you have a goal that's set, but it's based in a Christ-like mindset. And so that's where I think, as we start to talk more about this with grit and grace, is that there is grace as you continue to go through. There's opportunities to take a rest. We look at how God created the world in 7 days. He went 1 through 6, and then he took a rest. And so having grit also is being able to say, I'm going to stop. I'm going to take a rest. I'm going to pause all these things of, hey, I want to be a successful business person, but not at the expense of my children, not at the expense of my marriage, not at the expense of my bodily figure where I just let everything go. I'm going to have healthy boundaries in order to get towards my goal. And I understand that there's grace involved in that of, hey, Cam, you had mentioned that you came home, your wife was sick, everything else was on pause, right? Like, you were still grinding, but more so you had grit enough to say, hey, what is the important goal that I'm trying to get here? And that is to take care of my wife, take care of my kids. Sure, could have worked out, but that was not the highest priority. And when you're grinding, you lose sight of those other things. And when you have grit allows you to have a perspective of endurance, of understanding that this is not a sprint. We're not just trying to get straight to the goal, but we are understanding that as we go towards the goal, that we can bring other people with us.
Yeah, I think there's that aspect of like burnout that can come if you're just so headstrong on nonstop going and going and going. I think there's times where we're called as men where it's the fight or flight. It's like, what happens when, everything breaks loose? I think at that point in time, especially around our families, we need to be the anchor. We need to be the beacon that no matter what the case is, if there's a fire, we're running into the house, metaphorically speaking. So I think there are times where it's like, nobody cares about your feelings. This is your job to be the anchor and be the beacon of hope to our wives and to our families when everything's going wrong. But I think there is that aspect of like grind that you're talking about where it's like, you're just going to burn out. Like burnout's going to come. And I think like I've had a question this whole podcast of like, how much of the things that we're going through are we giving to the Lord in our day-to-day? How much of our career or our business are we actually willingly and verbally praying and saying, Lord, take this from me. This is for you and your glory. And how much of the Lord will carry us through the gritty times, right? Versus we just think we have to do it on our own. Like I got everything I need. I'm gonna plow through this, right? Yeah. And what are we missing that the Lord can actually do for us? Like the Lord can carry us through the hard times if we're willing to give those things to him. It's like you've gone through years of tough times with your family. Like if you just white knuckled, like I'm going to get through this on my own, it would have been impossible.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like the Lord will carry us through a lot of kind of setting aside working out in this context, but like family, personal life, business, career, like all those struggles, like, are we giving those things to the Lord every day? And he will carry us through everything, right?
Yeah, and I think what's ultimately important here too is passing down that grit to our children.
Yeah.
And the way that we can do that, there's a lot of ways, and a lot of people have talked about this. How do you encourage grit in your children? How do you like nurture that, basically? And we talked a little bit about nature versus nurture too, but specifically, how do we create grit in our kids? And there's a lot of different opinions on this, but I think what becomes the most impactful, just like we talked about last episode, was we have to be that example, because as we all know, the kids are just such a mirror of us. They'll do everything that we do, good or bad, which is scary, but it's also so encouraging to see when it is something good or when it is grit, or when it is, how they treat their siblings, because how they're treating their siblings is usually a direct representation of like how you're treating your wife or how you're treating them. But specifically with grit, if we are leading the way and we are doing things in grit and we are persevering through hard times, that's how we're going to pass it down to the kids, because they're going to see that and they're going to notice it. And I think that's why working out becomes so important. And that's one of the reasons I like endurance training a lot, is because that's directly applicable to grit. You can't have grit without being consistent, right? And consistency assumes a length of time, right? So enduring things, going through endurance training, that's one of the greatest ways to train grit. But yeah, that's one of the benefits of working out, is that that's a way for us to show our children what grit is, and they can see that and they can start to emulate that, and ideally that transfers over to every other aspect of their life too.
Yep. When I think of my family and getting them to follow, the imagery in my head is a rubber band. Like you're gonna pull, and nothing's really gonna happen. It's just gonna be stretching, and so oftentimes we're like, well, I set this example and nothing changed, so I'm just gonna quit. But the aspect of the rubber band is you got to keep on going. You have to keep setting that example, and then eventually that rubber band's going to meet its stretch limit and start pulling them along with you. And I know that's evident with my daughters. Like they're not gonna work out if it's on their chore chart unless they see us doing it. And then after that you don't even have to ask them. They're like, oh, this is just how we live. This is what we do. This is building grit. And then going back to the grind versus the grit, it's like I have this one specific dude in my life, and I think it's a lot like culture pushes us to think this. We go into his garage, and I'm like, hey, I need this obscure tool, and he's like, 3 rows back to the left, above the garage, or above this, it's in this box in the back corner. And he's like so absolutely organized in everything he does. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot to live up to. I want to do this sort of stuff. But it's taking a step back and realizing, like, if my garage is absolutely perfect, then I'm probably sacrificing time in the Bible. If my room is absolutely perfect, then I probably skipped a conversation with my wife that I should have been having. So for me, it's there are seasons in life. So in this season, maybe I won't have the best garage or the nicest landscape, but I'll be pouring that time into my children, into my family, into my walk with Christ instead.
It's a little bit of dying to yourself.
Yeah, die to yourself, serve others, get to the important parts, and don't worry about keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah. Yeah, TJ and I have talked about this, about how if we were in our early 20s starting this business, we could work 60, 70 hours, weekends, 7 days a week. It was like, oh, why did we not start this then? And the irony, the paradox is that you didn't have a why, you didn't have a purpose.
Yeah.
The kids gave you the purpose, the wife gave you the purpose.
You probably didn't have the grit.
I did not have the grit. I honestly, I would, if I had started back then, what would have happened is I would have quit, because the tough times come, and there's something to being God putting you into a spot where you have a wife, a kid, a wife and a kid, or multiple kids, and then suddenly there's a burning of the bridge. So it's like there is no retreat, there is no going back, there's no quitting, because you can't just restart with nothing. You can't just throw the business away because it's not working. Where if you were 22, it's like, good effort, I'll do some stuff. So as we wrap up, wind down, I want to get into the last segment that basically is kind of a staple, where each one of us takes a quick minute to give a direct encouragement to the listener. We need a name for this. Is there a name for this segment? I wanted to say Final Four or something, but there's 5 of us. It's Final 5.
Fantastic Five.
Fantastic 5.
That's also Fantastic Four.
The encouraging word.
Philosophy finale.
That's an
okay. Well, then you're gonna give the philosophy finale, starting with Brandon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Do it, lady. So to close this out, I think we need to. I'll just speak direct to the listener here. Grit is something that you can train, but it's also something that you can just decide to do now. Like it is absolutely a muscle that if we train it, we're going to get better at it. But just because you're better at it doesn't make it something that's out of reach if you're not good at it. So I think you just need to decide today, and it needs to be an individual, like an everyday consistent decision. It has to be something that's like at the forefront of your brain. You have to just decide today, I'm going to push through whatever it is I'm going through. I'm going to have grit. I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to get up early and work out because that's what I decided I'm going to do, and I'm not going to lie to myself. I'm going to work through this problem even though I don't want to. I'm tired. I'm just going to do it. And so, yeah, there's my thought.
Nice.
TJ?
Just if you're working out and you have that breaking point where you're like, oh, I gotta stop, give it another 30 seconds or 60 seconds. See what happens when you tell your body no and you force yourself to continue. If you're in a business situation and say you don't like confrontation and you prefer to text somebody instead of call them or meet them in person, make that step to call them or meet them in person to have that tough conversation, because that's going to produce character, that's going to produce grit in your life to be able to get through those roadblocks. If you're at home and your default is, when I get home, it's feet up, it's food in my lap, and I just hang out, see what happens one day when you go home and you aren't feet up. You're, hands and knees on the ground playing with your kids, and you're doing the dishes and you're cleaning up the house. Like, just see what happens. Like, give it an opportunity. Push yourself to see how gritty you can be, and you're gonna like the results.
Yep. Just go a little bit farther. One more.
Go one more.
Go one more.
Hey, perfect hat today.
Yep.
BP.
One more what?
Yes.
Everything.
Yes, one more.
One more.
When you're running, man, go one more mile.
One more.
Go one more.
One more minute of sleep.
One more snooze.
Maybe
Catch me
not,
right.
not one more
One
snooze.
more chocolate?
I guess it's not.
It's not everything.
It's not everything, Paul.
Hey, it's okay. Not everybody gets it. It's fine.
Paul, you don't get it, Paul.
It's okay, man.
Yeah, but
It's the haircut. I don't get it.
I think it goes back to the little decisions, and you're right. It is a decision, and it can be these little things like, are you knocking the ice cube under the fridge, or are you gonna pick it up? Like, that's
Who doesn't knock the ice cube under there?
I'm half and half. Sometimes I do. Sometimes
Mine
I don't.
doesn't fit
That
under
gives
the
me-
fridge.
Yeah, neither does mine either, yeah.
But it's those little
Yeah.
seemingly meaningless decisions. That's a muscle. You're choosing which
Mhm.
dog to feed at that point.
Mhm.
Am I feeding the laziness, or am I feeding the grit of like, this is what's right, this is what should be done,
Mhm.
I'm going to take that step and do what should be done.
Mhm.
I think just setting up your goals, right? Having a goal, having an end game, understanding where you want to be next year, and just check back in monthly and have somebody who's going to help you be accountable to that goal. Because if you set a goal up by yourself, it's pretty easy to be like, tried, did, and then you're like, oh, well, you didn't really try, but I tried. When you have someone else there that can be like, yeah, no, your goal was to be able to run 5 miles by next year. What are you doing to get there? How can I help you? They start asking questions that you don't really want to answer,
Mhm.
but it helps you to grow and understand. And when someone else is there to help you towards that goal, it's a lot easier. So accountability is huge. Having a group of people around you to be accountable, whether it's in working out, I would say more importantly, being in the Word, group of people to hold you accountable, whether it is your spouse. That's probably the easiest one. It's like, hey, did you find time to get into the Word this morning? No. Okay, let me take the kids, go get into the Word. Those are things that are super important. We talk about working out a lot, but your walk with Christ is the most important thing that you can do, because your kids see that, they understand it. They see why is Dad setting aside time? Why is he reading the Bible with me? Why does he see this to be so important? Set those goals.
Yeah. They say, what is it? You either plan, or you either fail to plan, or you plan to fail. Yeah, that's it. Like, you need to make that commitment to working out, to being this certain way with your family. And then every time you fall down, because you're going to, just keep getting back up. Just keep recommitting over and over and over again. That's why when we talk about Christ being our foundation, it's immovable, and it's what we come to, and then we build back up again. The storm's gonna rock us. Life is going to rock us, but it's that commitment that that you make over the long term that builds endurance for the long term. So, and what we'd love for you to commit to today is to like and subscribe. Come back next time. We're going to be starting out a lot of different topics. Obviously, these first 3 have been about God and manliness, but God, gains, and grit have been the three keys that we've touched on. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Cut that real quick.
Nobody wants to see that.
Did anybody else
Everybody
think that
wants
we
to
were
see
going Kenneth Copeland? And what I would like you to commit to
Is it $5.99 a month?
$1,000 check.
Patreon.
Sow your seed.
Sow your seed so the
He-
Lord, the
he's
heavens
one
will
more-
open.